Open up your eyes, take a look at me. Get the picture fixed in your memory. I'm driven by the rhythm like the beat of a heart. And I won't stop until I start to stand out.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the LorcanaCast, the most magical podcast on earth. No, this is LorcanaCast, the premier Disney trading card game podcast. I'm your host, Sugi. With me in this episode are Chris, who we had last week. Hey, how's it going, Chris?
Awesome, man. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's good to have you. James is out and about. He may or may not join us later in this episode. So, cross your fingers and wish on a shooting star. We'll see what happens. But we are here to introduce our fourth member of the LorcanaCast, and that is Jason. He was off on an adventure going to Europe and Disneyland Paris, and I'm maybe a little bit jealous, but that's okay, because we're glad to have him here with us. So, Jason, how are you doing?
I am doing very good, my friend. I am very excited to join this team. As these guys can tell you, I have been like a kid waiting to open my presents on Christmas morning to record this episode.
Oh yeah. It's been a lot of fun kind of talking internally about all these really cool things with the trading card game. But before we get into Lorcana as a whole, our last episode, we three talked about ourselves and, our history and our stuff like that. So we want to give you the exact same chance so people get to know a little bit more about you. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your trading card game experience?
Yeah, sure. So as Sugi said, my name is Jason, but you can either call me Jason, Jay, or even Cap because of how much I love Captain America. I've been a huge nerd and fanboy my entire life. I love Marvel, DC, Star Wars, Dragon Ball, Kingdom Hearts, you name it. I pretty much love it. In terms of my Disney experience, I am a former cast member, which is why I can join our amazing team here. It's actually how Sugi and I met. We used to work together in the parks, and we were actually reunited pretty recently. Sugi mentioned his birthday celebration. That was a couple months ago. So yeah, all together, I worked for the company about 8 years all together. Worked for store and the parks, did a lot of different things. And as he said, I just got back from Europe, went to Disneyland Paris, had an absolute fun time. And now I'm kind of like Thanos collecting the Infinity Stones, crossing the parks off my list. So hoping to go to Tokyo Disneyland next.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah.
What were some of your highlights at Disneyland Paris? Like, I haven't been there. You've obviously been to Disney World. That's where we work together. So what are some of the differences between, is there like a cultural difference? Are the rides better or shorter? Or, what's that like if someone's listening and they're like, I want to go to Disneyland Paris, what should I expect?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a huge difference, obviously, between the States and France. But in terms of, I'll start with the parks themselves, right? So the thing that I noticed about the park is it's kind of like, if you take like Disneyland out in Anaheim and the Magic Kingdom here in Orlando and kind of put it together, there's kind of like touches and flavors of both, where like Main Street is like wider, but it feels like the Main Street in Anaheim. The rides are attractions, are very different. For example, like Peter Pan's Flight is different there as opposed to here at the Magic Kingdom or even at Disneyland.
Okay. And then what were some of your like favorite rides and attractions and shows? Were there a lot of duplicates? If, people have been to Disneyland, Disney World, there's a lot of crossover where, Haunted Mansion's very similar, Small World's very similar. It's not like there's a major difference as opposed to say like the Guardians of the Galaxy coaster at Epcot is exclusive to the East Coast, whereas Indiana Jones Adventure is exclusive to the West Coast.
Yeah. So they have, for example, their Big Thunder Mountain Railroad, which is one of my favorite attractions, is actually really cool. So the track itself is like in the middle of like water area, kind of like the like man-made like little pond. And so to get there, you board it on like one side in like Frontierland, and the track actually goes like underwater to like get you to like where the attraction is. So I thought that was really cool. And then their Haunted Mansion, which they call Phantom Manor, I believe, it's very, very different from what we know. If you've been to, again, the Haunted Mansion in Magic Kingdom or the Haunted Mansion in Anaheim at Disneyland, very, very different. And so, like with that one, like their focus is, if you're familiar with the character of the Bride, their attraction is centered around that character.
All right, so it sounds like you had a really fun time kind of gallivanting off in the parks and just enjoying the Disney experience. So let's kind of pivot into the trading card game aspect. So what is it about Lorcana that's got your attention? Everyone's got something. Some people are collectors, some people are players, some people want a new trading card game. So, what was it that you saw at that D23 announcement that just grabbed your attention and said, I want to play this game?
Yeah, so I would say it comes down to infinite possibilities. And I think James or Chris touched on this before, that if you just start with set one, traditional Disney canon, because that's what they said they're starting with, just from that set of infinite characters alone is very exciting. Of course, that's going to go to infinity and beyond once we get Pixar and Lucasfilm and Marvel introduced. We get Buzz and Spider-Man and Indiana Jones and Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker. And then from a player standpoint, I'm a very competitive player, and I think this game again is something that you guys have kind of briefly touched on already. Is like this game hits the three target markets of potentially of competitive players, casual players, and collectors, and that's just very exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's a little bit of something here for everyone. And that's kind of the fun thing about our team. We each want something different out of the game, but it all kind of coincides with Lorcana as a whole. So let's talk about some more fun stuff before we get into the meat and potatoes of this episode. Classic question that we're going to ask everybody who comes on the show: favorite Disney character? And we'll preface with OG, non-Touchstone Pictures, wink wink. So no Jack Skellingtons.
Sure. So James took my initial one with the genie. So to be different, I would say it's either Hades. Keeping this a family show, I won't talk about James Woods as a individual, but it's either going to be Hades or Baymax.
Oh, okay.
And so for movie, it's going to be Big Hero 6. Reason why is that movie is actually very important to me and my wife. That was our first date, was seeing that movie. And so I feel and we watch it every year on our anniversary, just to kind of replicate our first date basically. And I think that movie really got overshadowed by Frozen. Unfortunately, at the time that it was released, because Frozen came out first, and it was big, and it's just the story of brothers, of Hiro and Tadashi, and then learning how to deal with loss and coping, and then, Hiro learning how to let go and be okay.
Oh, yeah. I think Big Hero 6 is a fantastic movie. One of my favorites by far. Also, Disneyland is getting a remake on their Pixar Pier, which is going to be partially new San Francisco, and I'm really excited to see that.
Yeah.
Did you hear about that at D23?
No, you just made my day.
Oh yeah, so the area of Disney's California Adventure where they had the sourdough bread, and not too terribly much, honestly. It was pretty much it looks like a giant warehouse. It's kind of cool, but there's not a show or a meet and greet or anything. There's just a little sourdough bread kind of thing. They're going to retheme that pretty neutral area into a San Francisco wharf front. So there's a little bit of artwork and mock-up stuff that they're proposing, which we know could mean absolutely nothing. But the good news is they're going to do something with Big Hero 6 in the parks, and I'm really excited to see what they do, because they didn't announce a ride or anything, but I'm going to assume we'll probably be able to meet Baymax in that area, and it's a great opportunity to have a little, meet and greet plus food combo, maybe a little sit down area, who knows, but it's just going to be cool. So let's talk a little bit about your trading card game experience in the games you like, where you've gone, what your competitive nature is. And another thing we talked about in the last episode that I would love to get your input on is we talked about different terms and keywords that are most commonly used in trading card games. And unfortunately, you weren't there to participate, but now that you're here, I want to get your take on, terms you think that we might not have touched on that will be, utilized, that newer players or people who don't play TCGs at all might hear in conversation and not exactly know or wonder, what is that term? What does that term mean?
Yeah, sure. So I've been playing TCGs competitively for about 25 years. I have a lot of tops, whether that's regionals or different side events. I've obviously made some national tournaments before. My hope as a competitive player is to not only top but win a national tournament one day for whatever game I'm playing. In terms of what I played Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon, the Score, and a Panini Dragon Ball Z game, the Naruto CCG. I know the basics of Magic the Gathering and Final Fantasy. I have a lot of friends that play them, so by extension, I know those a little bit about those games. But my game of choice right now is Dragon Ball Super. I absolutely love it. We are actually kind of gearing up for our national season here in December, so trying to get my invite for that. In terms of my play style, just to touch on that real quick, you guys mentioned being control players. My typical play style is to be aggro or mid-range. And if I'm feeling spicy or super degenerate, then I play hand destruction.
Oh, that is nasty.
Yeah, because again, for people who don't know, hand destruction is essentially what it sounds like. You're just saying, okay, discard 2, or if you have cards like in my game where I get to pick a card out of your hand and send it to your graveyard. Then if you don't have cards in your hand, then guess what? You can't play the game. Then I can do what I want and try to go for the win. In terms of my my term that I wanted to talk about, it's kind of spicy, kind of fiery, and that is burn.
So tell us a little bit about what burn is. Because I'm not exactly sure if it's going to relate to Lorcana, honestly.
Maleficent has I got to pull up the card again, but would you say that that's a version of burn?
No, that's removal.
Okay, go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, no worries, man. So traditionally with burn, it's basically cards that just basically say inflict X direct damage. I know sometimes in Magic it can be to like you can target like a creature or your opponent's life. But typically it's a card that says like inflict like 3 damage, to like essentially to your opponent's life. And you're just trying, it's basically like non-interactable direct damage to your opponent. And there's been a lot of strategies. A popular one to take Yu-Gi-Oh, for example, was to make a monster called Gaga Cowboy. Sugi already knows. And you get your opponent basically down to 800 life points or less. In Yu-Gi-Oh, you lose the game / duel when you hit 0 life points. So you detach the material that you used to make Cowboy, you inflict 800 in this game. So that's an example of burn for Yu-Gi-Oh. Now, you did mention, will this pertain to Lorcana? So an example I had is, what if they theme it essentially around a character like Hades, for example, where he comes into play and say if he has pain or panic in play, or if he's like challenging Hercules, like if this game, which you guys talked about before, so maybe it wouldn't work, but if there's some kind of way to inflict damage maybe to like your character, since this may not be like a life-based game.
Yeah, I think again we talked about it last time. I don't know that Lorcana's going to have a hit point system, right? It's all speculation, but I'd be surprised if there was direct damage to players in this game, just because of the nature of what the cards we've seen so far. It seems way more like a quest for so many points or control so many area type game to me. But it'd be interesting. I mean, there is effects to remove characters or to control characters. I just don't know if we have that third step that Burn is known for, which is directly in a game by attacking the player himself.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure if Lorcana would actually utilize that mechanic. So in Magic and traditional card games, kind of what Jason was alluding to, most burn decks are very non-interactive decks. So if you think about Magic, both players have 20 life. So as a burn player, you generally build this wall that your opponent can't get over. And then you have all of these cards on the table that say, when someone draws a card, they take damage. And when someone summons a creature, they take damage. And when someone spends resources to cast a character, they take damage. And so the idea is you deal just enough damage where you have, 1 or 2 more life points than your opponent. So at that point, the game is just progressively, you're both dying slowly. But if you've got 19 life and your opponent has 15 life, then theoretically they should die before you and you win the game. So it's a slow burn, which is where the term comes from, where you're just dealing, direct damage to the opponent with, spells that, like a lightning bolt that says deal 3 damage to target player or creature. Cool. Lightning bolt to the face. All right. Opponent draws a card. Take a damage. Opponent plays a card. Take a damage. Opponent sneezes, take 2 damage. And, you're just progressively slowly killing them. Where in Lorcana, because I don't think Disney is going to use a life point system where, Illumineers start with 20 life. You have to kill each other because, they don't like to use death or kill or stuff like that. I mean, even on the cards themselves, you're not fighting, you're challenging. So they're using a very strict terminology that's very family and child friendly, so that at no point, is a player ever going to say, my Cruella kills your Elsa. It's like, no, Cruella challenged Elsa to a, match of wits or a duel of some sort. But I could see the game utilizing burn in a different terminology where maybe you're burning away resources, or you could see like a stall deck where, again, this is all predicated on speculation, but perhaps you're sitting at a quest and you wall up with so many characters that are just unkillable, and your opponent can't stop you from scoring, victory points or quest points or whatever. And so you're slowly burning away the game where, you're acquiring victory points or resources that are unmitigatable. So maybe we could see that. I don't know. I have no idea. But it's an interesting term that who knows what we could see it as. Any other thoughts before we move on?
No, that was just the term that I thought of for today.
Okay, so then let's move on to the meat and potatoes of this episode. And I want to talk amongst ourselves about the secondary market. This can be a boogeyman to some people when you start to talk about money and trading card games and the price to buy a new Mickey Mouse, which, is looking at, $200 to $300, and a set of D23 stamped cards for $2,000. Oh my gosh. So there's a couple things I definitely want to bring up. First of all, the secondary market is very heavily set right now at the current time of this recording in favor of collectors, because players don't know anything about those cards. We can't tell if the cards are good or bad or mediocre or maybe slightly decent on a Tuesday. There's no way to tell what the value of the cards are playability wise. And the other thing is, we've already been told by Ravensburger that they're going to reprint these cards in the first set. So there's not really a fear of acquiring the cards. It's just maybe not acquiring cards with a specific foiling and D23 stamp on them.
Right.
But let's talk first of all about what a secondary market is. Who wants to, take the lead on this one?
I think I'll take a broad approach to the question. So yeah, I think for any TCG or trading card game, as we talked about last time, which Lorcana is one of, you're going to have a spectrum, right? You're going to have one side be collectors, and you're going to have one side be players. And many people that interact with the game are going to fall somewhere on that spectrum. Like most things in life, is a spectrum, right? Maybe somewhere in the middle where they like to get some shiny items, get some special items for the game that they like to play and collect, right? But they also want to be able to play the game. So they have cards where they can make a deck, make multiple decks, show the game out to friends, go to tournaments, that type of thing. And then you have people on that spectrum that all they want to do, they don't want to play the game at all. All they want to do is collect the game, which generally means, and based on the information we know so far, that there would be special treatments. Generally means getting these chase cards or these rare cards as part of collection. So they can say, I have the complete first set of Lorcana, which arguably could include these D23 foil cards, right? That would be one way to market that collection, saying I have the first 7 cards that were released in the game. Whereas you go on the other side, there will be players out there that could care less about that. They would play the game with blank cards that just have the stats on them. That's the other side of it. That's just somebody that likes the rules of the game, wants to play the game, doesn't care what the cards look like, doesn't care about reselling the cards, anything of that nature. So to add on to what Siggy's question was, there is a secondary market because collectors will spend money trying to get these cards. They'll spend more than they took to buy the cards. So the example we have in real life right now is that at D23 there was the 6 cards released as a set. I think was that $50 to get the set? Does that sound right?
Yeah, yes, it was $49.99 plus tax.
Right. Plus tax. And the Mickey card was the 7th card, Mickey the Tailor, and that was free. I think it's been revealed that there's 900 of those cards that were handed out over the weekend at D23. And I assume you got them just for going to the booth or something of that nature, or maybe making a purchase. I don't know the details about that. But those are the 7 cards we have so far. And as many of you listeners may know, the package of the 6 cards is selling for many times what the purchase price was. I just looked up some of the numbers right now, and at one point they were going for over $3,000. It looks like the price is dropping on eBay to the high 2,000s. But again, that is
casual 2000s,
right? So that's a high, trying to look at a high tier approach of what a secondary market is and why we have one. It's generally based on the collectors, and some games you could have it where it may be based on players too, trying to get rare cards that work for their deck, right? They have unique effects. Again, as Sugi just said, we've been told in this game that all the cards will be available. They may not be available in a shiny format. They may not be available with a D23 stamp, but every card that they're releasing with these special treatments will be available in a base form, which assumably will be easier to get.
Yeah, and I want to throw the next question to Jason, since you've played a lot of trading card games and you've probably had to pick up some of your cards on the secondary market. So why don't you explain to the listeners a little bit about how the secondary market works now that we know what it is, like what formulates the secondary market?
Yeah, a lot of it comes down to, say, a particular meta game, like what cards are popular if they're in a lot of decks that are, say, like topping events all the time. If they're, again, coming from my game, if there's like different rarities, they can, of course, like the higher rarity can be significantly more. And then if everyone's buying it out, then you have, of course, a supply and demand effect essentially, and which is kind of what's going on right now with these cards. And so, if there's a low amount and, high demand, then obviously you're gonna have to pay more. And that can actually lead to problems where, your cards can just, you might need like a play set of, say, Elsa, and then she's going for, $500 a piece. And, or if you really want to be like a competitive player, are you really going to shell out like $1,200, $1,500, $1,600 for some cardboard? A lot of players actually will, for like the super like competitive market in order to get their chance at glory.
I'll just jump in right there and say that would you agree, Jason? That's for getting your comments there are for getting cards to make a deck work, right?
Yes.
Like
yes,
that. Okay.
yes.
So right. So that's not. Again, that's I think part of what we want to communicate here is at least as far as this game in particular, Lorcana, right now, seem to be collectible cards. Again, it doesn't seem that there will be some costs you'll incur if you want to make a deck in this game. That's how TCGs are. They're collectible card games. So these are, you're going to have to do some work on a base level to get all the cards you want to work together for a deck. That's how every TCG is. But you will not need to spend $3,000 to get a D23 set to make your deck work. That's not going to be what's happening in this game, as far as we can tell.
Correct.
Yeah. Yeah, so the big difference between something we've talked about in other episodes is you have sealed product and then you have secondary market product, aka singles. So
Right.
Sealed product means you go to your friendly local game store, Jimmy's House of Dragons, and you say, hey, I want to buy a booster pack of Lorcana, and you spend whatever it is. The industry standard for a booster pack is about $4. So you spend $4 and you get cards wrapped in foil. So you don't know what's inside.
Or paper, Sugi.
Oh, that's true.
Flesh and Blood has gone to paper, which I really appreciate.
I like paper. So you get to have this thrill of unwrapping a booster pack. You have no idea what's inside. On average, you probably get some cards maybe worth the $4 you spent. Sometimes you get a big hit or a big pull, as people will call on YouTube, which means you spent $4 and you open up a pack and you get a card that's worth more. So maybe, $20 or $30. Like, oh my gosh, that's awesome. So buying sealed product is totally random. You have no guarantees. No, nothing. You just know that there are cards in a pack that you paid money for. So the secondary market kind of takes what, Jason and Chris were saying and combines the best of both worlds, where you know exactly what you're going to get. If I have this Mickey Mouse card on eBay for $300, if you pay $300, you're going to get that card. So there's zero rarity, zero questions about what you're going to get. However, you also generally are going to pay a higher premium because other people have opened multiple booster packs to find cards that you want. Now, the prices right now, as of this recording, are really, really high. And I do not at all think that a Mickey Mouse card, once the original first booster set comes out, is going to be going for $300. I could be wrong, but my better judgment says not likely.
And I will debate with Sugi a little bit there. That again, we've talked about that these are special treatments, right? These
no, I'm talking about the booster card, not the D23
okay.
card.
No, no debate then. Yes,
Yeah,
the base set Mickey the Taylor card will go nowhere close to with the $300 that you see listed right now. Right?
Yeah, because I want to have that debate after we've established what the secondary market is, because there's a lot of moving parts, and so I want people to be aware going into this conversation that the secondary market is not a boogeyman. It's the best thing I've ever heard it explained as is it's a stock market. So when you know about the stock market, hey, Apple, really expensive. Why is it expensive? Everybody likes it. They've got value. They're a huge multi-million bajillion dollar company, and so the price of their stock is expensive compared to Jimmy's House of Dragons matcha tea flavored, I don't know, bubblegum. Nobody knows what that is. Right. No one has any idea what this company does, and it's not backed with multi-million dollars. So their stock might be pennies. So that's a reflection of the cards. For example, we could see Captain Hook be a very inexpensive card that's a common printing. And so, you'll have, if you buy a bunch of booster packs, you might have 10 of him. Whereas, maybe Robin Hood or Mickey is a rare card and you might only have one of him. So there's an artificial rarity, which creates an artificial value. So people say, okay, maybe Captain Hook is worth 10 cents and Mickey Mouse is worth $5. Again, we're just pulling arbitrary numbers out of a hat, but the idea is there is a supply and demand, there is a rarity, and like you guys were saying, there is a value on the card if the card is playable, if it is something that is going to be played in multiple decks, or it helps define a metagame, which means that the card would be something that's called a staple. It's something that everybody has to use because it's just so incredibly powerful or so incredibly flexible that to be a competitive player, you just got to have this card, because if you don't, you're at a disadvantage. So all of those things create value in a secondary market. So now with that knowledge, I want to talk amongst ourselves about why do you guys think that the current prices of these Lorcana cards are so high? Because I don't care what card game we're talking about, $2,000 for 6 cards is really high. Like, that's just a lot of money.
I think it's because people are seeking out a piece of history. I think this game is, people know this game's going to be very popular. It's a Disney IP. I don't know how many people realize that it's not necessarily managed by Disney itself. It's put out to Ravensburger. But it is a Disney IP. It's the first time that I believe that there's going to be a TCG that with Disney cards. So I think people really are out there seeking that part of history, and there may be value there. Again, if these really are the only D23 stamps they're given of these 900 Mickey the Taylor cards, they will have some value that's above the base set Mickey the Taylor's. It's all speculation about what that value really is going to be. Obviously, if somebody's buying a Mickey for $300, they are either speculating that it is worth more than that, or they don't care what the value of it is and they want it for their own personal collection. Those are the only two answers to that question, right? Either they plan on selling it later on and they think it's going to be worth more later on, or despite what may happen with it, they believe that them having that in their collection is worth what they're paying for at this time.
Jason, what are your thoughts on the matter?
Yeah, I think Chris pretty much hit it on the head. I completely agree with him. So now what I am curious about was something that he didn't mention is, like, do we think in the future, like next year or the next time they do D23, will there be like another set, and like, will this happen again?
Oh man.
And I know that's kind of like off-roading us a little bit, but because like a lot of times at like conventions, like there is like at times, there is like a convention exclusive type of, set essentially, or, like card or something like that. So like, is it, are we like going to be in this situation in the future? I don't personally think so, but who knows, right? Like I said, it's all speculation.
Yeah, I'll play devil's advocate and answer your question. I don't. Well, my judgment says no, and I know there's people listening. They're like, "Wow, they already did it once before. Why would they not do it again?" And that is a really valid question. I do agree. So Here's my speculative response. Generally, when a game of this nature is announced at a convention of that nature, so D23 is a huge Disney related convention about the theme parks and movies and stuff like that. And Ravensburger had space to make this big announcement with this big, huge collectible surprise that nobody knew about. And it's awesome. It genuinely is really, really cool. But the thing is, the more you do that, in my opinion, the less like value or cool factor it has. Because if you know, oh yeah, they're going to be there this year, that like the cards will be valuable and the product will be valuable, but that big oomph of they just showed up and oh my gosh, I was there. That that experience and that memory isn't nearly as powerful. The other big thing is, Chris also talked about this. A lot of people, I don't know if you are aware of this, but generally the way licensed IP works with games in general is Disney owns the licensing rights and intellectual property or IP to these characters. So Mickey Mouse, Elsa, Robin Hood, Maleficent, Cruella, so on and so forth. So Ravensburger has signed a contract where they pay Disney money to use the likenesses of these characters in their game. After that contract has been signed, Disney has made their money and they don't really need to do anything because Ravensburger is the one that has to front the money. They have to front the workload. They have to front all the effort to create the game, to print the game, to publish the game, to play test the game, to sustain the game. And Disney just gets royalties off of the top. So if Ravensburger makes, $1 million, Disney gets X percent. So Disney doesn't really have to do anything, which means, a lot of people are wondering, will Disney support the game with special prizes? And will they be back at D23? And I don't think so. That's just my opinion, but based on from a business perspective, I don't actually know if Disney needs to do anything because, like, we all know people are going to buy it. It's a Disney game. And Ravensburger has already said they're going to be doing organized play and they're going to make the game readily available. And all these promotional cards that are super expensive will be in the original set. So they're trying to actively make the game accessible to everybody, which means that's awesome and that's fantastic. But if you notice, Disney isn't the one making these statements. It's Ravensburger. Ravensburger said, we're doing OP. Disney said nothing. Ravensburger said, we're going to make these cards available. Disney said nothing. So I'm not really incentivized to believe Disney is going to provide any kind of special support or prizes or trips to the parks or anything because Ravensburger is the one that has to shoulder all of the pressure. Disney just said, hey, sign this contract, follow these rules, and give us money. And that's kind of the end of that conversation.
I absolutely think that there will be special edition cards at D23 every year, or something of the same, or some kind of a Disney convention.
Okay.
Because these are ongoing games. There will be a set 1, there'll be a set 2, there'll be a set 3. That they may do a thing where they want to do all the cards in set 1 as D23 mark stamps, that kind of thing. And I say that because again, this is a spectrum, and the game needs both collectors and it needs players. And those things happen at the same time, right? You want people buying the game just to collect it, just to save it, because they think they could resell it later on for more. You want people collecting it just because they think the cards are cool and they want to pass them down to their kids. You want people buying the game to actually play it, because if nobody's playing the game, then the game's not going to, probably continue on long enough for it to be collected, right? So you need all these things moving together. And I see that, with each set releasing, they're going to be previewing eventually. Let's assume that eventually they're allowed to do Marvel IP. They're allowed to do Star Wars IP as part of the cards in these or special sets. So again, the fact that they've already said that these are just special treatments, they're not going to impact the ability of a normal player to get these cards through packs, right? So they can make whatever deck they want to make. They can mechanically build whatever they want to build. I don't see any problem with them making special stamps of a card to make it more rare for the collectors to seek that out and have their fun doing that. That's, again, the game I play is Flesh and Blood. And in Flesh and Blood, will be equivalent to what we're talking about here is in normal packs, you have a lower chance of pulling a special treatment of a card called a cold foil. It's just a type of foiling. So again, in Flesh and Blood, there are normal foil cards, which are just all shiny all together. A cold foiling is a kind of a matte foil that is specific areas of the card that make it shiny in certain areas. So that the cold foil cards are very rare, and that's what collectors typically seek out. But even players may want to have a whole deck, their favorite deck. My favorite hero in that game is called Kano. I have a whole cold foil Kano set, right? Because I like that hero so much, and I want to show him off. So I expected that to be something similar with Lorcana, and I hope that's what it is, because that makes collectors happy, and it makes players happy, and that supports the game economy overall.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong. Like I said, I'm playing devil's advocate. I would love to go to D23. I used to live in LA, so when they go to Anaheim, like that's my hometown. I have family there. I would love to go to D23 with y'all, get some cards, play some games, and then go over to Disneyland and like go get a Dole Whip, show you guys. Like no joke. There is nothing better than a Dole Whip in the theme parks. We can go ride Indiana Jones Adventure. We can take a picture where we're like, picking our nose while we're going down Splash Mountain. Like, I would love to go. I really do think they will probably do it. I'm speculating as to why they may not do it, but like,
right,
man, if they have D23 events with Lorcana, and they go, hey, we're going to have it at, Orlando. Cool. We'll go visit Jason. Hey, we're going to do it in Anaheim. Cool. We'll fly Jason out to come see us. Like, we'll have some fun on the pathway, but I think it'd be great.
The best thing I could hope for is that we actually have a Lorcana convention, right?
Oh,
I mean, that's what we really should be. Hopefully, we like this game enough, and the public likes the game enough, and we have enough players. Where, I mean, the equivalent of that would be, I just came back from Flesh and Blood had a national tournament. Again, Flesh and Blood is very focused on playing in person and the organized play, which I don't think that Lorcana will go into. I mean, there will be organized play. I don't know that it would be the level of what a Flesh and Blood does. This Flesh and Blood is, very structured, and there's a nationals, and there's worlds, and there's tournaments every month almost. So I'm not sure that I want that personally for this game. I want this game to be much more friendly for my child to get involved. I still want there to be organized play. But I say all that to say that, having a Lorcana Worlds would be something equivalent to like having a convention just for Lorcana, right? Where that we all get together, we get to play in an organized play way, and maybe there's a special card for that. Like, the Flesh and Blood does that, where you get a special card for going nationals, a special treatment of a card for being at nationals, right?
Oh yeah. I would absolutely love to go to a nationals or a worlds. I mean, if there's like a Lorcana Con, I think that'd be odd, because that just doesn't make sense. But
right.
If Disney adds Lorcana into events like D23, that would be fantastic, because I've always wanted to go, but I'm not a big like panels kind of guy. Like I've been to enough events, especially like, Star Wars events where, you stand in line for like 20 hours to see one panel. I'm like, I'm okay with watching the YouTube video from my house in my shorts and t-shirt, watching with my Cheetos. I don't need to be there. So, we each have the things that we love and the things that we may or may not super care about. So
right.
I think that's kind of fun, but really interesting stuff about the secondary market and what we could potentially see in the future. So now that we've kind of established what the secondary market is, how does it work, what's with Lorcana, let's have some fun speculating. Chris alluded to this earlier. So what do we think the market will look like in a year when these cards actually go to print and we can crack packs over the mic and you can hear the christening and crinkling of foil or paper? Actually, if they do paper, I would be really cool with that.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I
like paper packs a lot. They're really, really cool. They have a really fun texture. Of course, this has nothing to do with anything we're talking about, but paper packs are fun. So, all right, what's your prediction? We're talking about 2023. It's the winter time. The game is coming out, or it has come out already, whichever way you want to go. Do you think that these cards, the 6 cards, will be $2 to $3 grand, and Mickey will still be floating in the $200 to $300 range? Thoughts? Oh, I want to clarify specifically the D23 cards, because I'm pretty confident. Okay. Yeah, I'm pretty confident. I would wager pretty comfortably that the booster pack boxes without the D23 stamp will not be $3 grand.
Absolutely.
100%. Yeah.
If they are, I'm going to be in trouble.
Yeah. So I'll start with the Mickey card himself, right? I agree with Sugi. I don't think that card, and I could be, again, all speculation, right? I could be completely wrong. I think that card itself, depending on how the resource system works, just because he costs so much, and I don't believe, correct me if I'm wrong, that card is not foil, correct?
It's not foil.
It's not foil, correct. Okay, so I think that also like helps my case. I don't think Mickey will hold its value. I think he'll dip maybe by 50% optimistically. The set itself, actually, I think it will increase, just because kind of like what Chris alluded to, it's got the D23 hot stamp, it's foiled, it's in that nice collectible kit, like little folder, especially if you keep it sealed, there's no way to get any kind of like imperfections on it. So I think depending on, especially when we get to, again, my favorite thing talking about the metagame from a competitive standpoint, especially if you got a card like, say, Elsa, for example, just because of, her exertion ability, if she becomes like a staple, like Sugi mentioned, I think that set alone could go up in value if those cards end up becoming staples. And then you've got people like me who like to max rarity their favorite decks out, then I'm going to want to seek out a play set of the Elsa D23 hot stamp cards. And then my wallet is in big trouble.
Right. So max rarity, Jason, would mean, right, like you want the most expensive version of those cards, right?
Yes.
Which in this case would be extremely expensive. Normally that means getting the foil version, right?
Correct.
But now we have a special set that was released a limited amount at an early release, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
It's that Yu-Gi-Oh player, man. You got to have all those secret rare cards with the reverse holofoil.
Hey, I mean, I get in a lot of trouble with it with Dragon Ball Super because we have just like our commons, uncommons, and rares. Like they can come foil, and then we have what's called super rares, and then special rares, which are like fancier, shinier, golden versions of our super rares. And then we have secret rares, which are like even rarer than that. And then they just introduced God rares, which I don't have the second one, but I have the Super Saiyan Blue Vegeta God rare.
Ooh.
Yes. I was very happy to get that. That card is very, very hard to pull. So I don't play with it just because it's about, I think, $3,000 right now.
Did you crack it in a pack?
I did.
Oh,
I did. I bought. So for frame of reference for the listeners, I bought 6 boxes of the set that it came in. I believe the pull rate for that thing was like 1 out of either 4 or 6 cases. So what that means is there's 24 packs in one box, and then a case is 12 boxes. So and then you times that by say it's 4 cases, for example. So it's 24. All the way down the line. So it's very, very rare to pull that. So
I will say, I guess I'll take the opposite argument that, first of all, it depends heavily on how popular the game is, right? Mm-hmm. I think the game's going to be popular. The game's going to be, popular, especially with collectors. And I believe, assuming that they don't create any more of these cards with the same stamp, that they have these same 7 cards, they have, say, D23 on them, I think they will retain their value or go up. Only because, you have to imagine, too, that these people now, that this is where the market is. And it's been some time now. I mean, it's been, what has it been, 3-4 weeks, that they've held a pretty good price. And so somebody that is, bought the Mickey for, assumably they now they've changed hands, and let's guess you bought a Mickey for $250, right? You're less likely to sell that at a loss, right? Unless you needed money for some reason. So the same thing with these sets. If you bought the set for $2,700, you're unlikely to try to get $2,200 out of it unless the market crashes, which the market won't crash unless they make more of them with the same stamp, in my opinion. So I think they're going to retain their value or increase. The longer you hold typically cards of this nature, the value increases, as long as something doesn't happen where they print more, the game fails, that type of thing. So I think it is interesting, if I compare it to Flesh and Blood, again, the first cold foils in my game of choice, there's a thing called a Fable, which is 1 in, I want to say 40, however I forget this. 40 boxes or 40 packs, probably 40 boxes. Some of that, a pretty rare card, and the highest rarity version of that, went for quite a bit of money, and that has generally held its value even with the ups and downs of the market. So still very valuable. So I think these are going to hold their value.
All right, everybody, thank you so much for listening to this week's episode. We actually recorded a 2-hour show that we are splitting into part 1 and part 2. So this has been part 1. Part 2 will be out in a couple of weeks, so get excited because we had a lot of fun talking about what the secondary market looks like and how it's going to, or at least we think how it's going to affect the Lorcana TCG in the future. So we will have part 2 up in a couple of weeks, and we can't wait to see everyone then. So thank you for joining us. You can find LorcanaCast on Twitter and Facebook at LorcanaCast, and you can also check us out at LorcanaHQ.com. So those are the best places to connect with us, ask questions, talk to our crew, and just enjoy this amazing community. So we will see everyone next time, and so remember, Ohana means family, nobody gets left behind, nobody forgotten.
The sticky wheels always